Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, Tara. How are you?
Good.
Thanks. Yeah.
I understand that you are a professor of educational policy, so I saved this question for you. We are hearing the term CRT everywhere these days. In fact, your opponents are claiming that Radnor has CRT curriculum. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The short answer to that is no. CRT is a theory that is taught at the graduate level. So in my graduate teaching at Penn, for example, we've discussed critical race theory. It's appropriate to legal studies. I think that's where it originally comes from. But while we're talking about this, I think that diversity, equity, and inclusion has been mentioned in those same conversations. And I would say that diversity, equity, and inclusion, what that means to me is public education, actually. In the educational context, a public education is meant to be for every kid. So whatever kind of diversity of background they have, or diversity of needs, or diversity of strengths. Diversity in public education, what that means is meeting the kid wherever they are, and then including them as well. So that's the inclusion part. And then let me focus on equity for a second, because some people confuse equity with equality, and it's a bit confusing. So I actually prefer the word fairness to equity. And that's what equity really means to me, is maybe equality of opportunity or equality of provision of services. So it's a fair distribution to everyone, right? Yeah. And so that's what DEI means to me. And so public education is accommodating and inclusive of diversity, and it promotes fairness in society. So if a kid has barriers or disadvantages of any kind, then public education is meant to not only accommodate them, but to help the kid get beyond those barriers too.
Can you give us an example of a DEI initiative within our school?
Sure. An obvious one to me, I think, is the recent accessibility and wellness project at the high school. Yeah. So that is accommodating differences, and it's accommodating needs that people have. And so that's what inclusivity is all about, and diversity. So for example, if there are kids that need access to certain parts of the facility, and we need to build that infrastructure in, we do that. And so this project really symbolizes that. It means making our facilities accessible to everyone, no matter what their needs might be. There are other examples of DEI. And so, for example, one is MTSS. And what that is doing is helping to intervene for every kid, no matter what barrier they might have to their success, to help promote whatever strengths they might have too.
What does MTSS stand for?
Sure, it's multi-tiered systems of support. And what that means by tiers is that you have different levels of support in the student experience. So you have the teacher supporting, but also you have let's say teams of teachers that know about you as a kid and know about what your strengths are. And so there's also a continuity. So this system, once it's in place, will follow your child throughout their experience at Radnor. So once a kid gets to, let's say, middle school, then those teachers and educators will already know and have a record of what that child might need. Now, we already do this in our own way, but this is just putting more resources toward that effort, and it's backed by very solid research as well.
I appreciate those insights.
Sure,
thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I think maybe just take a personal note, just to say that I appreciate working with 8 great people, and just the whole board, the administration. It's been a real privilege and pleasure, believe it or not, to work in the school board. And, for me, it's a personal thing that public service has always been something that's very important to me, whether I'm volunteering my time in whatever role. I'm a coach for my son's soccer team. I would say that it's also something I should thank my wife for and her contribution, because honestly, I wouldn't be able to do this without her giving up the time. It just takes a ton of time to do this. And even my kids, like, where's daddy, and all that stuff. And yes, I have another board meeting, and what time will you be home, daddy? I don't know, maybe 9 o'clock and maybe midnight. I don't know. And it affects the next morning with getting the kids out. I mean, you're a parent. But Emily's like, are you sure you want to do this again? Like, really? Like, if you do this again, I'm going to kill you. But we had a lot of conversations about it, and because of the sacrifice involved. But to me, it's worth it. And she understands that. And, it's just, it's a privilege to do it. And I'm just very thankful to Emily, because without her support, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And from one parent to another.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
My
welcome.
husband and I thank you, and your wife, for the support.
Yes. Thank Emily. Yes.